Marguerite Falcha, you're very welcome to She's Ace online conference series hosted by GAA Handball. My name is Grainne McElwain and I'm delighted to be your host this evening. This series aims to inspire, educate and listen, and we will be focusing on three areas over the series: coaching and administration, participation and high performance. The aim is to support and inspire current female members, but also to encourage more girls and women to get involved in the sport. In this episode, we're looking at coaching and administration, and I'm delighted to welcome our panel here this evening. Fiona Shannon is from St. Paul's in Belfast and is a former three-time world singles champion and nine-time All-Ireland senior singles champion. She's a current national coach developer and is also a fitness instructor. Marguerite Gore is from St. Mary's Handball Club in Wexford and is the only female All-Ireland senior final referee. She's in training as current national coach developer and is also the Wexford Handball youth officer. Tracey Kennedy is from Killa and Cork and she's the current Cork chairperson and the first woman to chair Cork GAA. You're all very welcome. Fáilte roimh.
Hi, Grainne.
Hi.
Fiona, if I can start with you, you've been described as the best female player in handball. So when you finished up playing, was it a natural fit for you to get into coaching?
Grainne, I suppose it was in a way. It was just like, I suppose after retiring, it was just like the next step. Always wanted to give something back to handball. So many people have helped me in my journey, and it's just good to give that wee bit back. So that's probably the main reason why I did get into coaching.
Did you find it a difficult decision to do? Did you need much prompting to get involved as a coach?
No, I knew I always wanted to give something back, as I say, and obviously I loved handball, loved being part of the game. So it was a good way to stay there, and also then just to give my bit of experience back to the younger generation coming up and try and help out with that.
Margaret, you're involved as a referee. So how did you get involved in that in the first place?
Well, I've always been around handball, Grainne, for the last 30-something years, I suppose. And when you're around handball, you're involved in every aspect, be a coach and a referee. And for me, refereeing is part of the game. Just like coaching or playing, you do it. You love doing it. For me, it's another way to be involved. I suppose my playing days are probably numbered at this stage. So to be able to be involved in senior All-Ireland finals, it still puts a feather in your cap.
But why refereeing? Some people go, my gosh, you're mad. Why would you want to be a referee? What was your reasons for that?
I suppose I probably am a little bit mad in the head if you're going to step up in Croke Park and referee Martina and Katrina. No, I've been around with juveniles and coaching juveniles and been on the All-Ireland trails with juveniles. You're always there and they're always short referees, and I'm confident enough that I know the game and understand the rules well enough now that why not referee? Why can't I referee?
Absolutely. And Tracey, in terms of getting involved in administration, what was your kind of inspiration to get involved in that?
Yeah, I'd say it was just a combination of my personality and circumstances. I would be unusual enough in that I never really played very much GAA, but it was hugely the centre of our lives when I was growing up, a small village here in East Cork, and the GAA was everything. It was where we hung out, it was what we did at the weekends, it was everything. So I suppose it was a natural progression. Somebody asked me, I was a teacher, obviously started off in my teaching career, and somebody suggested, oh, we need a secretary for the juvenile club, will you do it? And I said yes, and regretted it every day since. No, I'm only joking, I loved it. But that was the start of it for me. I started off as juvenile secretary of the club, but I've always enjoyed administration. I do that in my day job as well now as a school manager, and I would have been involved, say, in the community council and things like that as well from a fairly young age. So it was lovely to be able to combine the GAA and the administration side, which I do still enjoy most of the time. And yeah, my career in administration progressed from there, then up through the club at juvenile adult level, divisional board level, and then on to county board level, and hopefully back to the club soon.
What did you feel like? What emotion did you feel when you were elected as the first female to be Cork chairperson?
Well, it was a really proud moment for me because it showed that the clubs in Cork trusted me enough to do something different, to make a different decision, and to put somebody there, of a kind who hadn't been there before. So yeah, I was really proud of my county for being willing to take that step, because Cork is often portrayed as a very conservative place, and it may have been so a lot in the past, but to me that showed that actually no, we're an open county where anybody can get to the top of the association. So yeah, I was really proud from that point of view, and also from my club, because I'm not just the first woman to be the chair of Cork, I'm also the first Killa person, so that was really important to me as well. So yeah, it was a lovely moment. I didn't realise what was ahead of me, but it was a lovely moment.
No turning back now, Tracey, no turning back. In terms of role models though, ladies, growing up, like, did you have many female role models in your lives?
I'm lucky enough that I'm sharing the screen here with one of my role models, Fiona.
Oh, thanks, Margaret.
But call a spade, Fiona. You're probably, in my opinion, the best female handballer that is there. And you were always, for me as a juvenile, you were probably a year or two older than me. So I always aspired to be like you. And I know if I was anywhere and you were playing, you were the game I wanted to see. And yourself and Shabelle were always so welcoming and so encouraging. And yeah, it's great now that you've stepped into the coaching role, because you have so much talent and inspiration to give to young girls and to the likes of me, middle-aged women. You're still an inspiration. So for me, Fiona would have been one of my role models, and still is, to be honest.
Oh, thanks so much, Margaret. It's lovely to hear. Thank you.
Have you heard that often, Fiona, that you have been a role model to people?
No, not really. I suppose I know, like, when I was playing at the time, I suppose when you're playing, you have a lot of the young girls and that coming up to you at the time, looking for photographs and stuff. So it's been a while, I suppose, from I have played. You're talking, it's a good probably 8-10 years now, so during that time, I suppose I maybe did feel it a bit, through the competitions, and everybody, I suppose, knew you. I suppose now, me going, if I was to go to some of the big games now, a lot of the young girls coming up wouldn't necessarily know me. It would just be a wee bit of the older generations, even the likes of Katrina, Sienna and stuff, all those girls. So just, I suppose, that age difference there.
And for you, growing up and becoming a handball player and then becoming a coach, like, were there female leaderships that you looked up to when you were growing up?
Yeah, probably more overseas at that time. The top players when I was growing up were all, I suppose, in America, the likes of Anna Kristoff, Lisa Fraser-Gilmore from Canada. So they were the leading women at the time. So you always, I suppose, not so much looked up to them, but I suppose aspired to be the champ, and they were the champ. So that's kind of who you were gearing for and who you were watching out for all the time, seeing their form of play, how they were getting on. And that was kind of your goal, to get there and to beat them.
What about you, Tracey, in terms of getting involved in administration and then becoming Cork chairperson? I mean, there were very few women that have ever done that role, and still is, as well as we're talking. So what female, I suppose, influenced your decision to go for that Cork chairperson job?
Yeah, I think I've been very lucky to have some brilliant female role models in my life going back along. And, I see Marguerite there talking about how Fiona inspired her. I suppose I was lucky enough to grow up in Killa around the same time that Mary O'Connor, who was a great dual player, was coming up at the same time. And actually Mary used to play with the boys that time. We were very successful at underage. So like Mary would have always been a great inspiration to me. There were other great sports women around that time locally, not far away. Sonia O'Sullivan, always a huge hero of mine as well. And I'm principal now of the school she went to, which is very exciting. So you have people like that. But in terms of administration as well, there's a wonderful woman here in Killa. Her name is Sheila Spallan. Sheila's in her 90s now, but she would have been the absolute backbone of our Camogie club here in Killa, and she was just known everywhere in the community. And she would have been, I suppose, the first example I saw of a female administrator, because she ran that club, always, and she's still really involved in it, which is phenomenal. And as well as that, in my own club, my own club would have had a female secretary, Mary Fitzgibbon, way back in the 80s, which would have been, I'd say, very unusual at the time. So it wasn't unusual in Killa to have women involved in administration. And I think that's what opened the door to me, because there were no barriers in my way at the initial level, which meant that I never saw any after that, because it was just something that was normal. So I think I was very lucky to have all those influences on me in my younger years.
A lot of people would be questioning now, and there's so much talk about trying to get more women involved in sport, in all sports across the world. But in terms of handball, are we seeing a progression of more women getting involved in coaching and referee and volunteering? Or have we still got an issue there that needs to be addressed? Fiona, if I start with you, first of all.
Yeah, I think that there's always you always have that lapse between the men and the women. The female participation side is definitely grew. I can see, you do have that dropout from the women at certain age levels, and I suppose unless you're hitting that top level, you kind of see the fallback from them, more so than the men. But for the coaching side of things, it's great through, I suppose, the GA handball, likes of Darren and stuff. They really are pushing for female national tutors like myself and Marguerite coming through. So they're always kind of trying to gauge and get more females involved. And I think it's so good because there is a lot of great players coming up, and as well, even different coaches and stuff. I think you need to have that kind of female touch there in the sideline to help keep the women involved and keep them in there.
What do you think the reasons, Marguerite, maybe that more women aren't getting involved, say, in coaching and refereeing?
I think it's just reluctance, I suppose. We're all reluctant in some ways to get involved in something that we're not quite sure of. But there's never been greater opportunities there for women to get involved, especially with handball. There's an abundance of resources and coaching opportunities and administration jobs there. And I even see at local level, the amount of women now that are doing roles within clubs that maybe 2 or 3 years ago were filled by males, but now most clubs have females that are active both in coaching and at administration level. And I think it's a great time for women to get involved. What's holding them back? Probably a fear. We all have a fear of the unknown. And if we haven't played the game up through the years, that reluctance is there as well for us to maybe to get involved because we didn't play the game, or we might not understand the game fully. But the game is quite simple to understand once you get the basic concept of it. It's quite easy to follow, and it's quite easy to referee, and it's quite easy to be involved and to enjoy and to coach.
What has been your experiences, Tracey, on women getting involved and maybe not getting involved as well?
Yeah, what fascinates me is the difference between the amount of women involved at grassroots level and the amount involved at the top level. So, like once I'm finished this year in Cork, and there are no other women currently in office in Cork, in the county board. And unless there's somebody on the way around the county, I think there'll be around the country. I don't think there'll be any female chairperson when I finish up in December. And yet there are so many women involved at club level. I would have dealt over the years with so many female secretaries, so many female treasurers, chairpersons even. We'd have maybe 8 or 9 female chairpersons in the county at the moment, PROs. And yet they're not progressing on, even though they're doing an absolutely amazing job in their clubs. I know of some female administrators who are far, far better than I am, and yet they're not moving beyond club level. And I think that really interests me. Like, what are the barriers? What are the things stopping them? And I think the other 2 ladies have put their fingers on some of those. I think, other things are the same reasons that stop women from progressing in all kinds of areas of life. We don't have enough supports in place maybe in terms of family commitments and all of those things. I think it's really, really important that we actively go out and target women to get involved, because we do need someone to say to us, you'd make a great, whatever it is, why don't you have a go at that? Or, will you give some thought to that? If I hadn't been asked by someone in my club to get involved, I might never be where I am now. So I think we have to really look at proactively trying to get women involved, because when you're the only one, the only voice, or in the minority, it can be a lot harder to get the things done that you'd like to see done.
And just picking up on that point, Marguerite and Fiona, like, whose responsibility is that to ask these women to get involved? Is that in club access? Is it in the Handball Association? Who do you believe should go out and actively recruit more women? Fiona, if I start with you.
Yeah, I think within every single club, it's their responsibility to kind of recruit as many people as they can, both male and female. And certainly then, you know, there is a need for more female participations and help and coaching throughout all clubs. So I think initially through the clubs would be the first protocol, and then after that through each county, then to kind of try and recruit more members that way, and just going up the ranks from there.
I think primary schools is also an area that is probably not tapped into as a resource that it should be. That we should be going more actively into primary schools and trying to involve young girls from a young age. And then it's also giving mothers at a young age, when their kids are only young, to get involved and to grow with their children in the sport. And from there down, is retention is another issue. But if you can get them involved from an early age and grow the love of the game, perhaps retention then won't be an issue moving forward.
In terms of challenges, Tracey, I mean, we've touched on maybe why a lot of women don't get involved in administration and in coaching levels, but what other challenges are there for there? Like, you know, have you come across, a lot of people would say, oh, it's very male dominated. Like, has that changed? Have you found that difficult to overcome, or where do you sit with that?
Yeah, and it is. The GA particularly is very male dominated. There's no doubt about that. I mean, when I sit in a county board meeting, if I ever will again in these strange times, you know, the county board in Cork would have well over 200 delegates, and there might be 2 or 3 women at any time. And no, that's a great improvement, I'd say, on what it was maybe 15 years ago. But it's just such a small number, and you're so conscious at times of being the only female voice in the room. And it would be brilliant to have a few more women around each of the tables that I sit at. I would love to see more women at them, because it is a difficulty. No, it's not. I can't say that I've ever run into any great obstacles as a result of being female, and I can't say personally that I've experienced, you know, negativity around my being a woman in the role or anything like that. But it's just that the men don't share all the same concerns that I have, and it would be nice to have a bit of backup in terms of pushing a female agenda, I suppose, because when you're on your own, it's very hard to do that. And I try, and I say, well, you know, why don't we have any women involved in this, or why don't we involve the women in that? But if I'm not getting backup from others who don't mean to be malicious in any way, but just don't see it from the same perspective, that is an extra challenge. And I think it's just so vital that we have a greater gender balance in all aspects of our sport and our lives, because it just makes sense. I mean, half our population is female, so it does make sense. And even in the GA, like, I would love to see much greater alignment between Camogie Ladies Football and GA. And, you know, when you take our fan base, there's a huge amount of women who support the GA, and there really needs to be a greater involvement of women in all levels of the GA. Has
that been your experience, Marguerite, as well? Or is handball more gender balanced?
No, in my opinion, it wouldn't be male dominant really, but I can see the change happening. It's a slow progress. I think handball, like other GA, a lot of the clubs are run by males, and it's hard maybe for women. Like Tracey said, sometimes you're one voice against 10 and you're not getting heard, and you need that little bit of support. Your ideas are fantastic. Your plans are brilliant. Everything you're saying is making sense, but you might just need that other reasonable head, I suppose, maybe to agree with you and to back you up. Sometimes men I find, shut things down before they embrace it. Change can be difficult for people. Nobody likes change, and especially not with your GA clubs.
Would that be your understanding as well, Fiona?
I really haven't found a difficulty in myself, and I don't know whether it's because, you know, being such, I suppose, a top player in the game for a long time, that it would be more listened to, you know. So my people would, I suppose, involve me and ask, you know, what I think about different, I suppose, scenarios, and especially within St. Paul's and within Antrim. That's all I can speak about, and generally, my views would be asked and would be taken into account. There still then is a lack of female, and especially in our county, there's a lack of female participants. So there's not a big group of women that you could call on. So that would be our issue, is actually the female participation. You know, so for, like, if I'm thinking even 5 years down the line, is there going to be more like female coaches and female tutors like myself? Possibly not through our county, just because the players and that aren't there coming up. So that would be a challenge.
And what do you think practically GAA Handball could do to improve that, Fiona?
Well, I definitely think, you know, within our county itself, there is a strategic plan set out, and I think, as Marguerite had said before, it's through the schools. You know, it's starting them from that early age. I know now through the one wall, there's a bigger chance of the young girls coming up and actually playing in the schools. And there's definitely a lot more one wall courts going up throughout our county in particular. So that will only help increase the participation and get more girls involved. And I think you're going to target the big numbers in schools, and then from the schools go into the clubs. And that's kind of what we are kind of focusing on, and hopefully then increase that participation and keep them.
It sounds brilliant, but I know I hate saying the word, but finance and money comes into that as well, doesn't it, ladies? So, you know, I suppose, Marguerite, like, we can do that, and GAA Handball know what they have to do. So is it a case of more finance, or what areas do you think that they could actually go and improve the amount of number of young girls playing?
I think finance is a big part of it. Myself and Fiona are the only two female tutors in Ireland, and we couldn't be any further apart. I'm in Wexford and Fiona's in the north, and I suppose if you have more active female tutors, perhaps in maybe every county might be a little bit of a far reach at the moment, but definitely in every province, it allows for females to bring in tutors and to have a female-based coaching and develop from there. But primary schools for me is a big area that we really need to tackle. GAA, I know things at the moment are different, but normally GAA are going in and they're doing their hurling and their football and their camogie within schools, and that's an ideal opportunity for handball to actually go in as well there and tap into that. One wall is the way to go, and for schools it's the way to go, because everybody has a wall that we can play. All you need is a wall and a ball. And for me, that's a way that we can grow it, is by getting into the schools and getting the kids at a young age and growing from there. But it all comes down to funding, of course.
Does visibility, Tracey, a key aspect here as well? Visibility of female role models?
Oh, without a doubt. Like the can't see, can't be thing really does apply to us. And I think, you know, it's brilliant when you see people like Fiona and Marguerite coaching. That's a brilliant example then to girls, because they see, well, I can do that too. You know, anyone can be a coach. And, you know, I would have always hoped, and certainly it's the reaction I would have got from other women, that, you know, the fact that I got to be Cork GAA chairperson, well, you know, other women can do that too. So visibility is absolutely key. And I think there's been an awful lot of work done, you know, in terms of making sure we see more women in sport, you know, whether it's on TV or in the media and so on. Still a long way to go as well. And, you know, just following on from Marguerite and Fiona there, like, certainly we could give some thought to incentivizing greater involvement of women as well. You know, I mean, if we want to increase the number of female coaches we have, and if funding is an issue, then maybe some central funding could be dependent on you having a particular number. You know, maybe every county needs a female coach in terms of GAA handball, or, you know, it could be applied some way differently to the aspect that I'm involved in. But there could be maybe ways to incentivize having greater numbers of women involved, because the more of us there are, the more there will be.
Mm. We've kind of heard some reasons maybe people don't want to get involved, is kind of the fear factor, or just maybe I suppose confidence as well, is a lot of things for some women too, that they mightn't feel confident in getting involved. And Marguerite, you would have touched on that. But I suppose your advice maybe to get more women involved in coaching and refereeing administration. If I start with you, Marguerite, like, what would your advice be to women that are maybe kind of sitting on the fence and going, you know, I'd like to do that, but I'm kind of afraid to do it?
I suppose start at club level. That's where you're going to be most comfortable, is at club level. And if you have your own child playing, maybe stick with that age group. Find your area that you're confident in and that you have your ability in. it's all about taking the first step. I think the first step is always the hardest. Once you take that first step, you find that you have great support around you, be it at club level, at county level, and at national level. Fiona, you know yourself, GA Handball are great there. Anything you need, they'll happily give you. There's great support there. There's online resources for everyone. And me, myself personally, if anyone wanted to get involved in coaching or refereeing or any aspect of the game, I'd be only too happy to help. And it's, I suppose, if we all give back a little bit, every woman that is involved, if we all give back just to one or two, well, then our numbers are going to grow slowly, but they will grow.
Would you agree with that, Fiona?
Yeah, 100%, definitely. I mean, as Margaret says, a lot of it starts with your own children, and I suppose, you know, you're bringing them to the GA, you're bringing them to the matches, you're bringing them to the games. So it's the best way to get involved is when you're there, is to help out, even if it's just, you know, basic things like making sure there's water there, or, you know, just even like a first aid, or just the basic kind of help, just to help initially get in there, and then it just moves on from there. Just sometimes for people, then it's just natural progression. And I think it also takes someone just to give a wee bit of gratitude and a wee bit of you know, feedback to say, God, you were great today, thanks for that. And belief going, you know, I can do this and I can move on to better things, you know, to help even on a more even part-time basis.
Have you found, Fiona, that just people want to be asked, like, you know, even to get more volunteers involved, that sometimes if you just ask people, they're happy to get involved? Has that been your experience?
I mean, definitely, even myself, I know there's a lot more I could do, but like if someone asks me, 100% I'll do it, but I'll not always throw myself into something voluntarily, you know, without being asked sometimes. So yeah, I definitely think if the female people on the sideline, or, you know, different ones are actually said, you know, I think you'd be good at this, do you mind giving it a go? It'll definitely increase the participation there.
And Tracey, being involved in administration, I mean, we've heard it's taken the first step, but what advice would you give to women that are thinking of getting involved, or maybe involved but are afraid to take the next step up?
I would just say back yourself, and if you are asked, as Fiona has outlined there, instead of thinking, oh God, I couldn't do that, you know, think, well, maybe that is something I could do, maybe it is something I'd enjoy. Don't have any regrets, because we do as women maybe tend to not say yes at times, and we say, oh, I wouldn't be able for that, I don't have the qualifications, I don't have the experience, I couldn't do this, but you could. And I really think, you know, if we step up and say, I give this a go, that you will find that you enjoy it. So I think that definitely would be my advice, is to back yourself. And again, for other women who are listening, if you are involved in administration and you are thinking of somebody, maybe we need to bring in somebody, we need a new coach, or maybe we need a children's officer, or maybe we need a new secretary, or the chairperson's term is finishing next year, try to think of a woman to approach for it, because all too often our thoughts go straight to the men around us, but try to think of a woman who might be good at that. And even if it's only just to put their name out there as part of the discussion in your club, then that's starting something too. So there's a responsibility on us to do that as well, I think, as women ourselves.
I think we need to praise ourselves more as well, and offer praise to our fellow females. Sometimes I think it's a very Irish thing. We find it easy to be critical, but I think we need to be encouraging, and we need to be thankful, and we need to praise the women around us as well.
And enjoy it. I think that's a big message you can see from the three of you. You really enjoy your jobs.
It's great fun.
All the time.
All the time.
On that note, ladies, thank you so much for spending this evening with me chatting about administration and coaching. We wish you all the very best. Take care. Tracey, Fiona and Marguerite. Ihoai, Garmaigi.